Over the past 2 decades, more than 200 passengers have vanished from cruise ships, an average of 10 people per year. While a small number compared to the millions who cruise annually, it's a devastating statistic for the families that are left behind. In March of 1998, 23-year-old Amy Lynn Bradley boarded a cruise with her family and never returned. To this day, Amy remains missing. Some believe that she may be lost at sea, but eyewitnesses claim she's still alive. On this episode of the Point of No Return podcast, we're diving into Amy's story, the investigation, and sharing our own theories about what really happened. I'm Amanda Washington.
And I'm Mich Graham.
Welcome to the Point of No Return, a true crime podcast that dives deep into cold cases, murders, and mysteries in various regions. These stories are told from the lens of two Black millennial journalists, and is also produced by Mandy and Mich Media. That's us. All right, so let's just hop right in. I'm gonna give you guys a little background about who Amy really is, where she's from, what she does, and then we'll go deeper into the crime. So we already know by now that she's missing. So who is Amy Lynn Bradley? Amy was a recent college graduate, and she's from Petersburg, Virginia. So if you're familiar with Virginia, it's about 100 miles or so outside of Richmond. And she had a degree in physical education, or like some people like to say, PE. She also played basketball. She knew how to swim. She worked as a lifeguard. But the interesting thing is, despite her love for swimming, she actually had a fear of open water. So it was kind of eerie around that, and that made her hesitant about actually going on this cruise to begin with. So it's always interesting to me, like when people end up in situations that they don't want to be in, and then they something bad ends up happening to them. And this is why I think oftentimes listen to your first mind or to your gut. If your gut tells you don't do something, don't do it. And she was hesitant about going on this cruise, and she probably shouldn't have went. So eventually she was convinced by her family, and they actually went on the cruise. So the first day that they're on the cruise is March 21st, 1998. They are on a cruise ship by the name of the Rhapsody of the Seas cruise ship. This is a Royal Caribbean cruise ship. So they set sail in San Juan, Puerto Rico on the 21st. 2 days later, on the 23rd, it left Aruba. They had arrived in Aruba by now from Puerto Rico, and they were going to Curacao. So currently they're in Aruba.
Okay.
In the early mornings of March 24th, Amy vanished. So here is the accounts that people have of the night before she disappeared.
I'm over here taking my...
I know that's right. So on March 23rd, Amy and her brother Brad, remember their last name is Bradley.
Yes. And so Brad Bradley, that ass, but I was like, am I tripping? Or I thought you were like...
No, his name is Brad Bradley. So on March the 23rd, Amy and her brother Brad attended an onboard Mardi Gras themed party, and they were getting down. So there's pictures out there actually in video footage on Google that you can physically see of her at this party. So she was last seen socializing with people that were in the crowd, but specifically a band member. So there was a band playing on the ship at the time, and it was called the Blue Orchid. The guy that she ended up dancing with is a man by the name of Alistair Douglas, who also goes by the alias Yellow. So she's hanging out with Yellow, and then Yellow would actually later tell CNN that him and Amy just had a few drinks, but he didn't know her. It was his first time meeting her. Mm-hmm. So after the performance, also according to CNN, Yellow and Amy departed from the party around 1 a.m. and they went for drinks. They hung out with the band, and he says they separated soon thereafter. They parted ways around that time. So they weren't together very long.
Okay.
So surveillance footage will actually show on the boat that Brad returned to the suite around 3:30 a.m. and Amy followed in about 5 minutes after him. So she did make it back to the suite where their parents were asleep.
Okay, so was Brad with her when they went to hang out with the band members?
Brad was not with her. So
where was Brad at?
I don't know.
You said he returned to the suite at what time?
At 3:35 a.m.
Okay.
And she came back 5 minutes after that. So about 3:40 a.m.
Okay.
So her and Brad chatted briefly before they both went to sleep, and she decided that she was actually going to sleep on the balcony that night to get some fresh air because she had been feeling a little seasick. And I can imagine that. I'm like, I get seasick on boats, but also on top of getting seasick, you drunk up?
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. She probably was
Hell
gonna do it.
yeah. So around 5:30 a.m., their dad, whose name is Ron, checked on Amy. He saw Amy was asleep on a lounge chair on the balcony of their suite. So she was out there, she was asleep, like she said. She was going to get some air and she fell asleep out there. But he woke up again about 30 minutes later at 6 a.m. and she was gone. He said that the balcony door was left ajar. It was left open about 14 to 16 inches. This was so specific to me. I'm like, 14 to 16 inches, like, who, you know?
Yeah, I'm like, why that exact?
Yeah, and then I'm like, 14 inches is just a few inches short of, longer than a foot. You know,
Yeah.
like, why would you just say, like, a little over a foot or whatever? Anyhow, you know, I'm like, it's just oddly specific.
Yeah.
So when he looked out, he noticed that the door was open. Amy was missing. Her pack of cigarettes was missing. And she also had changed her clothes. Okay, so those are all things to keep in mind when you're thinking about her. So then they start investigating, of course. So her family is they're panicking at this point. They don't know where she is. They can't find her. They are almost to Curacao at this point. They're very close to Curacao from Aruba. So her family is begging the ship's crew to page over the loudspeaker, but they refused. They said that it was too early in the morning, basically, and they weren't calling for her. She was a grown lady. So, maybe she's on the cruise having fun. Maybe she stepped out to do something. They're not really concerned with looking for her.
Camera footage?
I guess they could have, but...
Why? Also, what was it hitting for?
And also, this was 2000. So, like the rollback ability and all that stuff might, it's not the same as it is today. Yeah. So after that happened, things got even worse because they docked in Curacao. So now that they're docked in Curacao, that means that people are getting off of the ship.
Anything could happen.
Anything could happen. So the potential is, let's say she was, knocked over the head and somebody dragged her off in a suitcase. They off the ship at this point.
Yeah, that ship should have been turned into a crime scene immediately. No one's getting off. No one's entering.
Immediately. So Amy's mother is desperate. She's begging them, please, lock the ship up. Don't let anybody off. Don't let it dock, essentially. And they're kind of like, sorry, lady, these people will have to get off the boat. So by the time people begin getting off the boat, according to Amy's family, it's about 7:50 a.m. So it's been about 2 hours. It's been an hour and 50 minutes since they noticed that she's missing to the time that the boat actually docked. So that's how close they actually were to, the shore in Aruba. But by this time, like I told you, most of the passengers were already off of the boat.
So my thing is if they were up and at it at 7:50 a.m., y'all could have sent some messages at 6 a.m.
Hello?
Those are in the same range of early to me. I know it's a 2-hour gap, but I'm like, the people are getting off the boat at 7:50 a.m. They were already up and active sometime there before.
Yeah, but I think the thing that is to be said about this, especially with the crew, from a lot of reports that I was reading, it was just giving that they were negligent, of course, but at the same time, I think they were negligent because she was an adult. They're like, she's an adult. She can go and do as she pleases. Like, are you sure she's missing? Your husband just said he saw her 30 minutes ago. She may be on the ship somewhere else, right? So here's a direct quote from her mother. Her mother says, I kept thinking if she could hear the announcement, she'd come straight to us. But then I'm like, was she lost? Did you think she was lost on the ship? But what if she was trapped? What if she heard it but couldn't get to us? Eventually, the captain ordered a full search. Crew members claim that they checked all 10 decks in 999 rooms and came up with nothing. 999 rooms and came up with nothing.
How long did that search take? Y'all got done in a day?
They were done pretty much in a day. So by this point, they're kind of getting, they're contacting American authorities and the FBI. So they do a 3-day search of the ocean. Nothing.
Yeah, I imagine that ocean, if she fell in there, it was a wrap.
So the official conclusion from the ship was that Amy either fell overboard or she jumped. And, I was kind of, I was getting into the web sleuths and all that stuff. And as I'm sleuthing around, a lot of people think that she jumped.
Really? Why?
Yes.
It's not okay.
It's not giving jump to me either. And I
She
have
was
some...
too communicative with her family in those hours leading up to that. And I feel like if she jumped, they should have been interviewing that brother a lot more to hear what her final moments were like. Because if anyone had any inkling of something going on, like, it would have been him. Because I will say, has she not walked in that door before and, like, actually, you know, there's proof of her coming back to the room? That's the first person I was thinking of. Because I'm like, where was Brad? I wasn't even thinking of the band member. Because I'm like, oh, her brother was still out late as well.
Yep,
Did they make it back to the room together? And then he came back by himself, and then she trickled in soon thereafter. But,
Yep. So her family, of course, they didn't believe that. And they were thinking that maybe she was either taken off of the boat or was pushed overboard. And they had no reason to believe that she was taking her own life. And her mom accounted for the fact that Amy had just adopted a dog and she was going to pick up the dog the day that they came back from the cruise. Yeah. She just moved into a new apartment and she was starting a new job that following Monday. So it's kind of like she had a lot going on and a lot to look forward to. Why would she decide to, you know, die by suicide then?
And it's very telling that this happened right before the boat was going to dock. I feel like, girl, look at my notes. Look how many I got. It's arrows, it's signs. I feel like if she was gonna jump, that could have happened at any time throughout the night prior to. Like, why would she go out there and take a little nap and then wake up and jump?
Exactly.
I'm like, if she had to sleep, she had to sleep for like 2 hours. And I'm like, and then y'all telling me she got up, put some new clothes on, and then jumped? It's giving she went to go link with somebody.
And that's what her parents were saying. They were like, you know, two crucial things that they noticed. She changed her clothes before she left, and then also her cigarettes and her lighter were gone.
Which means she was going to smoke. And thinking about my experience recently being on a cruise for my mom's birthday, you couldn't smoke on your decks. You technically were supposed to go to a smoking area at the top. Because if you smoked on your deck, it was also in between other rooms, and it was a non-smoking, you know, of course. So you were supposed to go to the top of the deck somewhere and smoke. It was like a smoking area. So that could have been. So my mind went to, oh, she went to go meet up with somebody in the smoking area, potentially. But my girl already had a long night. I wouldn't have been waking up and getting out of nobody, getting from nowhere.
Hello, I would have been asleep.
Like, you never know. These cruises, you just want to have a little fun
because. You know, I've never been on a cruise, but people, it's like a thing, right? Like, people be having, like, a cruise boyfriend.
Girl, I was acting like I was on Girls Gone Wild when I went on one. So, I'm just thinking about just the friends you make. Okay, making it a joke, but also not. Thinking about the friends you make so quick, and then you think about it. Like, when you're in a hotel, like, you're in close quarters with other people, but you don't really realize it. When you're on a cruise, you realize it, because it's a moving hotel. Like, you're seeing these people day in and day out. Y'all going to the same restaurants. Y'all eating at the same spots. Y'all at the same pools. Y'all going to the same club, like, in between docking and going off. So I'm like, wow, you know, they have recollection of her, you know, making friends with Yellow, and they were hanging out that night. I'm like, she probably could have made other friends. Several or was kikiing with, I'm like, I can't even name how many friends I made in that week. And I was only there for 5 days. That first day, boom.
Yeah.
You see somebody again once, now y'all kicking it. You know? So it could have been so many different things.
Okay. So remember I told you that the crew said that they looked through all 10 decks and 999 rooms, right?
Yeah.
So by the time the FBI is alerted and they get their hands on this, they actually come to find out that the search wasn't as thorough as they believed it to be.
No way.
So
Liars.
the search actually only involved common areas and the bathrooms. They did not search the passenger or crew quarters. So literally,
they didn't search anything.
They didn't search anything. They only looked in the bathrooms and the common areas for her. So, of course, that was negligent, and the FBI had concluded at that point that she was basically lost at sea and that she's missing because they couldn't find any trace of her. They didn't find her in the water, and her family had to return home, sadly, without her.
Of all who came up with this search criteria?
So, interestingly enough, because you're like technically not in America anymore and you're on water, I was kind of like lightly looking it up. The laws are different. They just passed a law in like the last 10 years of like cruises and boats and stuff, that when people go missing, you have to report it immediately. And there's a particular protocol that you have to go through because, of course, all these people, end up going missing at sea or what have you. But this was in the last 10 years. This happened 25 years ago. So,
yeah,
they didn't have anything. And it was kind of like the FBI found out about it. They looked into it, but by the time they looked into it, it's too late.
Yeah.
And technically, the cruise is like, we're not investigators. There's no police on here. So it's really left up to the crew and the captain to figure it out.
Yeah.
So it's kind of crazy. But remember, I said people think that she's lost at sea, and some people think that she's still alive to this day.
Yeah. So who saw her?
So there have been multiple witnesses and eyewitnesses that have seen Amy allegedly since she disappeared. So let's start with that. Around 6 a.m. on March 24th, remember she went missing the day before. So this is the day after. 2 women reported seeing Amy taking an elevator. Well, this is the morning she went missing. So they reported that they saw Amy taking an elevator to the top deck. They said around 6 a.m. Her dad woke up around what time and didn't see her?
He woke up at 6 a.m. and said she was gone.
Okay. So 2 women reported seeing Amy taking the elevator up to the top deck. They also mentioned that she met up with Yellow at that point in time. And then they saw Yellow come back past the elevator 10 minutes later, and he was alone.
I knew he was going to come back.
So that's one eyewitness sighting. Then a taxi driver in Curacao claimed a woman matching Amy's description urgently asked to use a phone.
So they think he's saying she made it off the boat.
He's saying she made it off the boat. 2 Canadian tourists also reported seeing a woman with Amy's distinctive tattoos on a Curacao beach years later in 1998.
Wait, what?
In 1998.
She went missing what year?
1994. Excuse me, no. She went missing in 1998, didn't she?
Yeah, I was like,
I'm sorry. Honey, I'm thinking about birth years. No, she went I'm sorry.
You cool. I'm like, I'm over here re-looking at my notes like,
no, she went missing in 1998. My apologies.
No, you cool.
She went missing in 1998. So she went missing in March of 1998. And by August of 1998, somebody said that they saw a woman who fit her description on the beach. So that is what, 5 months later.
Yeah.
5 months later, they saw somebody matching her description on the beach. And they said that this lady appeared frightened and was accompanied by 2 men.
What you think? I'm kind of conflicted. You're not done.
Here's another one. No, it's several sightings. In 1999, a U.S. Navy officer alleged he saw Amy in a brothel in Curacao.
So people are multiple sightings in Curacao.
In Curacao. She reportedly begged him for help, saying, "My name is Amy Bradley." But I guess he didn't believe her. So interestingly enough, I'm going to show you a photo in just a moment. I'm not going to ruin it just yet. But there's a photo that people have also circulated, and they believe that this also may be Amy. So let me go to another sighting. In 2005, so now we have progressed forward. We went from 1998, we are now in 2005. 2005, a woman in Barbados claimed she encountered Amy in a department store restroom where Amy allegedly identified herself before being escorted away by 3 men. So the eeriest sighting of them all was an email that her parents received. It was an anonymous email. Despite reports, no confirmation has ever been made if the person in the email was Amy. So the picture that they showed, and I am going to share my screen really quickly so you can see exactly what I'm talking about.
Okay.
The picture that they showed of Amy, people think it looks very much like her. So this is Amy on the left right here that you see.
Known
Can you see my screen?
Yes. These are known pictures of her.
These are known pictures of her. This photo right here of her laying in this bed is a picture that her family gets sent in 2005 via email. Now, you compare the 2 pictures. Do you think that may be her?
That's her. That's her.
So that is of a sex worker. That is a picture of a sex worker that they got years and years later. And then here's another picture of her. But that's so her. This is right. So the photo is of a sex worker allegedly named Jazz, and they tried to go to Curacao and track Jazz down because that's where they said she was located. They have not been able to find this lady Jazz.
I hope they don't still got Amy on the stroll.
I hope not either. At this point, she's old for the sex game.
Yeah, but also, like, where would she be now if she's that old? Do you think they... I hate to say it this way, but, like, I imagine the women who are pulled into sex work in this way, like, what happens when they reach...
When they kind of, like, age out, essentially.
Yeah, like, what do they do with them?
Yeah, I don't know. Either I feel like they kill them or they're turning them into, you know, like... And at this point, because you've done so much of the stuff that you don't want to do, like, you're a drug addict.
Yeah. So what did the parents do after they received the email?
They reported it to authorities. Authorities looked into it, but they couldn't find whoever this Jazz person was. And I'm imagining because it was in 2005 when they did it, maybe it was harder to track the IP address and who sent it and do all that kind of stuff like we do now, you know? So I'm not sure what the follow-up with that was. But this kind of segues into what I was going to talk next, because I was about to say, let's talk theories, because I know your head is probably in a tailspin.
Yeah.
So give me some theories or what you're thinking or anything you might have a question about at this point in time.
Yeah, the cruise crew is in cahoots with some type of sex trafficking ring in Carousel. Okay. I wonder if this was the only reported person on that, you know, cruise line, because she was with her family. Mm-hmm. I wonder if she's the only reported one and got reeled in. I just imagine the women who either travel by themselves or they were in a small group of women and they all got snatched up. I'm just thinking, like, has this happened on any other cruise lines? Did this happen more on Royal Caribbean specifically, or maybe this route and with this specific crew? But yeah, I'm just trying to think of how she could have been taken off that boat, but it could have happened so many different ways. Right? Because I'm like, truly, if they were going to keep her alive, I imagine they weren't just going to stuff her up and suffocate her in a suitcase.
In a suitcase.
But I'm like, you never know. Because when they dock, a big thing of docking too is to restock the food and essentials and different things, which could have been part of her being moved.
She could have been like on a lower deck or something.
Yeah, and they could have, you know, carried her out on, you know, in crates or something, you know, where if they were like transferring things out to bring in essentials or shipments or whatever that may be. That all also just depends on where this home ship, you know, belonged. But I just imagine some type of arrangement like that probably made the most sense of how they got her off the boat. I just find it hard that she could have fell overboard and no one's seen it at all. Now, the time of day, yes. Mm-hmm. Could have been a big factor as to why, but
and I'm like, if you're thinking about it, like in the Caribbean at that time of morning, like by 6 a.m. the sun is up.
I was gonna say the sun is up. Some people on their deck looking out at something, like
the sun is up. And the dad said that he like woke up because something didn't feel right, but some people are also thinking that the dad woke up when she fell overboard or whatever, and it was like a thud or something, you know, and that's what like woke him up out of his sleep. But I'm like, because the door was open, you know what I'm saying? Like, you would hear something. Mm-hmm. You know, like, you would hear something.
Yeah, and the door being open is kind of bizarre, especially if she came in, changed her clothes, and went out the front door because she was going to the deck. But also, it's also not bizarre at the same time, because we're not in a regular hotel. We're not in a regular like establishment on solid ground. Like the door being open to the deck doesn't mean much, because who's climbing there? Who's climbing up there to get in there?
Yeah, you know to get her.
Like she probably didn't even think to shut the door because you can't get over there anyway.
And I was thinking the same thing. I was like, I don't think anybody took her from the cabin. Because, like you said, who's climbing on that balcony? Like, who did that?
And the way cruise ships are set up, like, I mean, if they were set up the same back then, like, the balconies, you can't see who's next to you like you would in a typical apartment or hotel. Mm-hmm. Like, they have it blocked off for privacy reasons. So I'm like, you can only see ahead of you. Like, it really is boxed out. So, what did Yellow say? I assume he had been interviewed a couple of times. Because I'm like, he could have been in cahoots. Mm-hmm. But also, I'm like, if he went up there to meet her for a smoke and came down by himself, like, he didn't owe that girl anything to make sure she got back to her room safe. Like, they had just met. But at the same time, if he was in cahoots, it would make sense. Because he worked on the cruise line, too, so.
Yep, I agree. So, with Yellow, what he said so far is that he just met her on that cruise ship. They was vibing. They kicked it until around 1 a.m. that morning. And then after that, he was gone. He has never accounted for this 6 a.m. situation when they were smoking or doing whatever. So he doesn't know anything about that.
Oh, so he said he didn't go and meet her at 6 a.m.?
To what I read, the only part that I read about this 6 a.m. thing was from those eyewitnesses. I don't even know if the police asked him about 6 a.m.
Right, or if they looked into it.
Yeah, so I'm not even sure about that. All I know is that that's what he said. But allegedly, Brad said that he saw Yellow the next day before they kind of like told everybody on the boat what was happening. And Yellow said something to the effect like, you know, I'm so sorry of what happened to your sister. And Brad thought that was weird because he was like, what happened to my sister? Also, we haven't told anybody. But I'm like, you know, depending on if they told the crew and other people,
they probably had a staff
imagine,
meeting.
I would imagine that group of people are close knit. So even if the band wasn't included in like that staff meeting crew people, somebody could have told him like, yo, you heard that girl was missing or whatever else. But let me share some theories with you that I thought of, as well as some theories that other people have heard. Mm-hmm. My theory after I saw that picture of that jazz lady was sex trafficked.
For sure.
Immediate, I thought it was sex trafficked. But here's some theories and things that people have discussed over the years of what they think may have happened to Amy. So some people are saying that they were so close to shore that if she did jump over, because she had the ability to swim and the water wouldn't have been that deep leading up to it, that she could have swam to shore. So that's also a theory. Like if she did fall off, she should have been able to swim to shore. But then remember, like I said, even though she knew how to swim, she did not like open water.
What floor were they on?
It didn't say.
It didn't say? Okay. Because I'm like, the impact is a big factor in this as well. We never know if she did fall off, depending on where she was at, unless she was lowered to the boat, which even then, that is not a shallow drop, even if you... Mm-hmm. And she's not going to be lower deck. That's going to be crew. So there are on the cruise ship, you can choose like to be, if you don't have a balcony, you're likely going to be lower deck, meaning your room is going to be looking at the water, like underwater.
So they got to be a little higher if they had a balcony.
If you have balcony, of course, you got to be higher than the water. So if they had the balcony, like they at the very least had to be in the middle. So I'm like, she couldn't have been, she had to, that fall would have been a rough impact to be like, I'm gonna pop up and
swim. Yeah. I'm like, I don't know.
I don't think she hit that water.
I don't think she did either. So Amy's parents also recall her being kind of creeped out by a waiter that was on the ship. The waiter approached the family while Amy was still alive and asked her, did she want to go out when they were in Aruba? And the place that they wanted to go in Aruba was Carlos and Charlie's nightclub. So I'm mentioning the nightclub because, interestingly enough, a lot of people seem to think that the disappearance of Natalie Holloway and the disappearance of Amy have some kind of connection. And the reason that they think that is because she was supposed to be going to this place, Charlie's nightclub or whatever. Carlos and Charlie's nightclub is also the last place that 18-year-old Natalie Holloway was last seen. She was last seen there. Even though, you know, Natalie Holloway went missing in 2005. This happened in 1998. Somehow people are like, that's interesting. The Carlos and Charlie's nightclub situation.
Yeah, what's going on with it?
What's going on with that?
If you were trying to take me there, that means that place was probably known for some shady business.
Exactly.
Also, in 2005, they could have brushed elbows because if
there was a sighting of her allegedly in 2005.
If Jazz is Amy and Amy is Jazz, she could have frequented that place.
Exactly. So, you know, with this whole Jazz situation, you can't really see any tattoos on her or anything like that, but it could be the way that she's just sitting up. But the FBI did try to locate Jazz, but they could not find her. They couldn't find her at all. So it's still been very much so up in the air. The family has, at this point, hired their own personal, like, private investigator to figure out the case. They've reached out to the FBI. The FBI has a reward. There's been different age progression photos and things of that nature, so you can kind of see, like, what Amy looked like when she went missing, what she may look like now with short or long hair. So it really does vary. But the reward for her is only $25,000. It's not that high. $25,000. They have no idea what happened to this lady, whether she fell off, whether she was kidnapped, whether she was, sold into sex trafficking, whatever the case may be. But her family does seem to think that something went wrong on that ship and that somebody either held her captive and she is in the Caribbean somewhere, or something has happened to her since then. So, like I told you, her family has a private investigator. I'm going to leave this part with you. I found her family's Facebook group, help us find Amy.
Yeah.
So they actually tracked down this man by the name of Herman. Herman was a retired police officer, in Curacao, and they think that he has some potential involvement in her being missing. So allegedly, Herman said that he told authorities he's seen her several times and that he knows who her captor is and that he is a local powerful drug dealer that lives in Curacao. And he was able to describe her tattoos, where they were on her body, all of this other stuff. So they're thinking like, oh, maybe he's had some type of interaction with her. In 2024, a team of investigators in October of 2024, they went down and they confronted Herman in Curacao. They said that he was very evasive and that he wasn't trying to give too much detail, but he did say that she has now been forced into a drug addiction. But this is the account of one man. They're just going off of this one man.
Yeah.
This could be true. This could not be true. And that the guy who's held her captive is a dangerous drug dealer, like I said, and his name is Bob.
A dangerous drug dealer named Bob in Curacao. All the names you
in Curacao, right? Bob. So the other interesting thing is Herman is related to a key witness that could have helped them figure some more things out, but he was murdered. And Herman is saying that the witness is his brother, who was also a driver for the drug dealer. But he was murdered in order to silence him about what he knew about Amy because they didn't want it to get back to authorities, right? So investigators are now starting to believe that Herman has misled them and that this is a lie. So I don't know if Herman completely lied, if he's lying about his involvement, but he's saying that he knows who the people are, but investigators are starting to think that he did somehow have involvement in Amy's case and he's covering up exactly what it is that he knows.
By putting them off their track.
Exactly.
I want to know why go through all the loops and hoops for this one girl. What is it about Amy? And now that she has a drug addiction, if this is true, what use is she to you?
And why did you give yourself up? Why did you even contact them saying you knew something?
Why would you leave her alive? What importance? I'm asking these questions because I'm like, why keep torturing this girl? Mm-hmm. This woman, this elderly woman at this point, almost. Okay, no, that's dramatic.
Elderly is crazy.
She's probably what?
She's 50. She can definitely get an ARP card.
50.
She's probably 50. She was
why would you be nurturing a drug addiction of a 50-year-old?
Yeah, she's almost 50 at this point.
They very well could still have her on the payroll.
Yeah, or doing something else,
Mm-hmm.
So
because in these 2 decades, she probably could for all we know become a part of their inner circle. I believe she's alive. I believe she's over there
somewhere in the Caribbean, right? So the last communication that investigators said that they had with Herman was he sent them a chess game screenshot. It was a screenshot of a chess game, and he blocked them. That was the last time they talked to him, and that was in October.
Okay, so they need to go over there and get Herman's ass.
Girl, they got pictures all over the Facebook group of Herman. They cannot find Herman. They found him when they first talked to him, and then he sent them off the tracks or whatever, and they have not been able to talk to him since. So something is up with Herman. Something, I don't know what's going on with Herman, but there's more to that story, and there's more beef in potatoes there. But what we do know is she is currently still deemed missing.
Ugh.
She was last seen on that boat by her father at 5:30 a.m. on the balcony. When he woke up at 6:30 minutes later, she was missing in a different pair of clothes. Her cigarettes and lighter were also gone with her. And that was the last valid eyewitness sighting that we know of Amy at this point. People are saying they've seen her here. They saw her on the deck at 6 a.m. They've seen her there, but there is no sighting of her. So her family is still seeking who may have her or where she may be. And of course, if you know anything about this case or you have any information, a $25,000 reward for any tips or discovery to where Amy is given out. So contact the FBI or, your nearest American embassy if you're not in America, if you know about any whereabouts of where Amy may be. So that is the mysterious disappearance of Amy Lynn Bradley.
Yeah, I'm still over here taking notes. I'm still deep in the case. We need to figure out what happened to Amy. We need to figure out where she's at. I hope her family gets some sort of resolve, because this is just sad.
Yeah, and bizarre. Like, where could she have just disappeared to? People just don't disappear.
And a cruise ship won't see me. I'm straight.
Okay.
This didn't scare me straight.
Okay. Well, we invite you guys to follow us on Instagram, on TikTok. Make sure that you interact with us. Tap in, give us your theories, because I know that y'all are probably thinking to yourselves too, like, this is bizarre. I have some really good things that I would like to add. So we want to hear from you guys. If there's a case you might want us to look into or anything like that,
yes,
let us know about that too. We would love to look into more things that you guys are interested in as well. But until the next time that we meet again, I'm Amanda Washington.
And I'm Michelle Graham.
Thanks for tuning in.
Bye.
Audio Jungle.